She was still alive when they found her, but only barely. The rain had washed most of the blood down the concrete steps of the alley. Her body was twisted unnaturally, arms bent backwards like broken wings, face tilted toward the sky with her mouth wide open, as if screaming at the clouds. One eye was missing, the other stared blankly at the falling rain. Detective Lon arrived on the scene soaked to the bone, umbrella useless against the sideways storm. This was the 5th body in 6 months. Same day of the week, same weather, same expression. Only this one lived long enough to whisper something, just one word. Before the paramedics wheeled her away, the girl had grabbed Lon's wrist with inhuman strength and hissed, "Listen." Then she flatlined, and in that exact moment the storm, which had been thundering for hours, stopped. Dead silence. No wind, no dripping gutters, not even a single drop of rain hit the ground. Then, faintly, from somewhere in the alley, maybe inside Lan's own head, she heard it. Drip, drip, drip. A sound not unlike water, but it wasn't water, it was breathing. Detective Lan sat in the back of the ambulance, her coat soaked, her mind louder than the sirens. The girl's grip still lingered on her wrist, unnaturally cold, like something from a morgue. "Listen," she'd said. Just that. No name, no killer, no dying confession. But somehow that single word felt heavier than a scream. 5 murders, all female, all in the rain. No suspects, no witnesses, no weapons. The first 2 had been dismissed as random acts of violence. The third raised alarms. By the 4th, the press was calling him the Rain Reaper. The 5th, this girl had almost survived. Her name was Laura, 26, university student, straight A, no priors, no known enemies, and no umbrella. She'd been found behind a noodle shop at the edge of District 5. No security cameras, no footprints, just water and blood. And carved deep into the wall behind her, barely visible under the moss and mildew, were 3 letters, THM. At the precinct, Lan poured herself a cup of black coffee and pinned the 5th victim's photo to the board. The girl's face stared back at her, mouth still open in eternal protest. Next to it, photos of the other 4 women, all murdered in different parts of the city, all between 2 and 4 a.m., all during heavy rain. Lan circled the times in red ink, always the same. She tapped the edge of her pen against the crime map. Her eyes kept drifting to a note scribbled beneath victim number 3. Heard someone humming before the scream, like a child's lullaby. No one there when I looked. Witness in building across the alley. That detail had never made it to the news. But now, Lan was starting to believe it. 3 days later, the rain came back. It started at 2:08 a.m. Lan was driving home when she saw him. A man in a black raincoat, not running, not hiding, just standing under a streetlight in the middle of a flooded road. Lan slowed the car. He didn't move. She rolled down the window. "Hey, you okay?" No answer. The rain was pouring now, blurring the windshield. She could barely see his face. But something was off. He wasn't wet. Not a single drop seemed to touch him. The water bounced off, not like it was hitting fabric, but like it was afraid to touch him. Lan got out of the car. The second her feet hit the water, she flinched. It was warm, too warm, like bath water, wrong. She looked back up. The man was gone. In his place on the soaked concrete were bare footprints, and nothing else. The next morning, Lon visited Laura Andrews' dorm. The rain had stopped, but everything smelled damp. Mildew clung to the ceiling corners like bruises. A fan spun lazily, doing nothing. On Laura's desk, among textbooks and perfume bottles, lay a journal. Most of it was normal. Class notes, doodles, to-do lists, until the final pages. Written in shaky, almost frantic handwriting, he watches in the rain. He waits where it puddles. He's not real until you notice. I heard him in the pipes. Drip, drip, drip. He's coming for me. He said I'd be fifth. Who's sixth? Who's sixth? Lon stared at the final page, and her own name was written there. Lan, in red ink. That night, the rain didn't come, but the sound did. From inside her walls, a slow, rhythmic drip. She walked around her apartment barefoot, following the noise. No leaks, no open windows, yet the sound moved from the ceiling to the vent, to the kitchen faucet, then to the radio. The radio wasn't on, but it whispered, "When it rains, it kills." Lon unplugged it, still the voice. Sixth, then silence, and then a scream. Not hers. Lon had barely slept all night. Today's rain wasn't heavy, but it was enough to soak everything, making the air thick and suffocating. She sat by her desk, flipping through the victim's files. The first thing she noticed, all of them had lived in the same area, a small alley long abandoned by anyone brave enough to enter. The alley was covered in thick moss and mildew, yellow-stained walls showing the wear of time. Lon decided to visit the place herself. The alley walls were covered with dense black mold, giving off a sharp, musty smell. On the walls, she spotted strange carved symbols, a series of letters, T-H-M. Lon took photos with her phone. This was the same mark found near the scene of the fifth murder. Suddenly, she noticed some rough patches beneath the mold. Using her fingernail, she gently scraped the surface. Underneath was an old, tattered piece of paper. Carefully, Lon peeled it off. Inside was an old newspaper. The front page told the story of a man named Trent Howard Miller, a serial killer arrested in the 1980s who had vanished without a trace. Strangely, this name appeared in secret police files, but no one wanted to talk about it. Lon cross-checked the victims' profiles. Tina Vaughn, 22, university student Maya Thompson, 29, bank employee Fiona Lane, 35, journalist Holly Bennett, 41, kindergarten teacher Laura Andrews, 26, freelance artist. What did they have in common? They all knew a mysterious person named Miller, the same last name as the old killer. Lon called the victims acquaintances, but everyone avoided the name Miller. Some revealed Miller was once a close friend, a quiet man living isolated outside the city. A few said Miller had a strange habit. He only went out during heavy rain, and when he came back, his clothes were always dry, as if untouched by water. Lon remembered the man she saw under the streetlight, the one who didn't get wet. Could he control the rain, or was he a manifestation of the rain itself? In the old files, it was noted that Trent Howard Miller not only was a killer, but also showed signs of an extremely rare condition called the water ghost syndrome. People like Miller were called shadowless because they left no shadow and no wet marks on their bodies, even standing in heavy rain. An ancient local legend said the man without shadow was a being created from raindrops, pooled on the bodies of the wrongfully dead. Just as Lon stood in the alley, her phone rang. The caller said nothing, only heavy breathing, then hung up. A message arrived. "Lon, don't let the rain touch you, or you'll be next." The rain started falling lightly on Lon's shoulders. She took off her jacket and bowed her head to avoid the drops. But the sound of the rain was different, like the sigh of a waiting presence. Lon returned to her apartment just after midnight, her coat soaked despite using an umbrella. She couldn't shake the feeling that the rain knew her, watched her, touched her, even when she thought it hadn't. She laid out the victims' profiles once more, this time looking for personal history, not just job titles, not just names. And then it struck her. All 5 victims had, at some point in their childhood, lived at St. Augustine's Orphanage, a state-run home closed in 1992 after a string of abuse allegations that were never prosecuted. And guess who once worked there? Trent Howard Miller, under a different name, Mr. Howie. The orphanage records had been sealed. Lon had to go through a former social worker to get access to a portion of them. Inside, she found something chilling. A photo, grainy, yellowed, torn at the edges. It showed a group of children standing in the rain, their small faces blurred by time and water damage. But in the far corner, looming behind them, was a tall man in a long coat. His face was unnaturally pale, and his eyes were looking straight at the camera. The file noted that Mr. Howie was dismissed for inappropriate conduct, but no charges were filed. Many children had gone missing during his tenure, but nothing was ever proven. Even more disturbing, among the missing children were names that matched the middle names of the current victims. Lon made a list: Tina Marie Vaughn, Maya Elise Thompson, Fiona Grace Lane, Holly Rose Bennett, Laura Jane Andrews. Each middle name matched a missing orphan from the 80s. Could it be they weren't random victims, but survivors who had changed identities to escape something? Lon tracked down the last known address of a 6th child, a boy named Kevin James, who had been adopted and renamed Julian Frost. He was the only one from St. Augustine's who hadn't died. She found him in a psychiatric facility, committed voluntarily after a suicide attempt. Julian was unresponsive at first, but when Lon said the word Howie, he flinched, then whispered, "You hear it too? The rain? It sings to him. He lives in it now." Lan leaned in. "What happened at the orphanage?" Julian's eyes widened. He drowned them in barrels. Said the rain gave them back, fixed, but they came out different. He made us watch, and then he said, "One day, when it rains enough, I'll come back for you too." Lon returned to the alley again the next morning, just as another rainstorm swept in. This time she noticed something she had missed before. Footprints, not fresh ones, old, fossilized in the moss. But only one set, and they never let out. As she followed them to a corner, she found something embedded in the wall. Another newspaper clipping. It was a small article about Trent Howard Miller's death in custody, but the body was never recovered. The prison had flooded after days of rain, and 3 corpses were swept away. Only 2 were ever found. Lon pieced it together now. Miller hadn't died, or at least not in the way people thought. He had been reborn through water, through rain, through rot, through mildew-soaked walls and forgotten grief. He was now something between a man and a storm. Something that remembered pain and never forgave. And the survivors, his final witnesses, were being collected. Lon turned slowly as the rain picked up again. No thunder, no wind, just the soft, unnatural sound of footsteps, wet, squelching, deliberate, approaching behind her. Lon turned sharply, flashlight trembling in her hand. No one was there, but the footsteps continued, echoing in the narrow, rotting alley. Drip, step, drip, step. Each sound punctuated by the slow heartbeat of the storm overhead. And then she saw it. Not a man, a shape, standing still under a crooked street lamp, surrounded by downpour, dry as bone. Trent Howard Miller. His face was gaunt, gray, his eyes sunken like drowned sockets. Water poured around him but never touched him. His long coat flapped, untouched by wind. Lon raised her voice, though it cracked. "You're dead." A dry smile spread across his face. "Number I am remembered." She stepped back. Miller's voice was like water through rotting wood. "They forgot the children, buried them, but the rain remembers." He raised a hand, and the wall beside her bled. Brown streaks oozed down the yellowed wall. Old water, thick with iron, like it came from corpses. Faces began to form in the mildew, screaming children, their mouths stretching silently across the rot. Lon stumbled backward. Suddenly, the ground beneath her turned slick. She fell, hitting the damp stone. Her flashlight rolled and landed on something. A rusted barrel, half open, inside, bones, child-sized, wrapped in drenched newspaper, headlines still legible. "Missing children, mystery deepens, orphanage under fire." She turned, heart pounding. Miller was right beside her now. Impossibly fast, as if the rain had moved him. His hand reached toward her cheek, still dry, still impossibly cold. "You were there too, weren't you, Evelyn?" Lon froze. Evelyn, that name from the adoption files. One of the missing orphans, presumed dead. But she had no memory of the orphanage. None of Miller, until now. Visions tore through her mind like broken glass. Rain, screams, the barrel, the red room, Mr. Howie humming a lullaby. Lon had been one of them, a child who escaped, or rather, was adopted out. Her name changed, her past erased to protect her sanity. But some scars aren't physical. Miller whispered, "I was their father when the world abandoned them. And you ran." Lon stood. "I didn't forget them." She lit a flare and threw it into the barrel behind him. The bones ignited, a bitter blue flame, licking the rain like it was made of oil. She staggered painfully out of the alley toward home, as if running away from something terrifying that was vaguely present in her mind. The red room materialized like a living wound, right in the heart of Lon's apartment. The walls pulsed, bleeding mildew and black water. The air was heavy, thick, like breathing through a wet shroud. Lon stepped in barefoot, her soaked clothes clinging to her skin, eyes glowing with memory. She no longer trembled. Across the room stood Miller, or what was left of him. His body was now a grotesque collage of human features. Multiple faces twisted on his torso, arms formed of tangled children's limbs, his coat flapping like wings woven from shadows. He didn't walk. He glided, fingers trailing decay across the walls, bloom in mold with every touch. "You came back," he hissed. Lon gritted her teeth. "I will to finish this." She drew a sharpened iron rod, soaked in river water and wrapped in red thread. It pulsed faintly in her grip. Miller lunged, impossibly fast, arms snapping out like tendrils, walls bending as if reality warped around him. Lon rolled under his first strike, the iron rod slashing across his lower form. Sparks flew and black ichor splattered the wall, burning holes in the red wallpaper. He screamed, a mixture of dozens of children's voices layered with his own, and then vanished into the ceiling. Lan spun, heart hammering, thump. She turned just as Miller dropped from above, raining down like a shadow. She blocked with the rod. It flared white-hot on impact. His claws sparked off it like metal on bone, but he didn't recoil. Instead, he melted, reforming behind her. He whispered, "You could have been my heir, my rain bride." Lan whipped around and stabbed the rod through his chest. It pierced flesh, then kept going, cracking glass-like ribs, impaling the face of a child grafted to his torso. The child wailed, then disintegrated. Lan grunted, shoved him off, and yelled, "You don't get to wear their faces." Miller roared. A vortex of rain surged from him, smashing furniture against the walls. The red room cracked, revealing the orphanage beneath it, flickering visions of the place she had forgotten. Lan was dragged into memory. She saw herself, small, hiding in a barrel. The real Evelyn, the one who lived. She had closed the lid herself, listening to the screams of her friends outside. She had chosen survival, and she hated herself for it. Miller appeared in the memory, whispering, "You lived because you were already hollow." Lan screamed, "No," and shattering the illusion with a defiant blow of the rod. The memory shattered like broken glass. Lan was bloodied, bruised, soaked. Miller reformed, towering now, less man, more god of rain and decay, eyes weeping constant streams. "I will never die," he boomed. "As long as it rains, I will return." Lan reached into her coat and pulled out the pendant. Inside, hair mixed with salt and ash from the burned orphanage records. She whispered something in Vietnamese, a lullaby. Miller froze. His body spasmed. The children's faces on him wept. She ran, jumped, and plunged the iron rod and pendant into his throat, screaming, "You will never take another child." The red room exploded into light and flood. Not rain, but clear water, warm and blinding. Miller screamed, body unraveling, turning to mist and faces and screams that faded into the thunder. When Lan woke, the room was ashes and silence. No blood, no mold, only the rod, rusted and cracked, and the pendant pulsing faintly in her hand. Lan not a victim, not a hero either. Lan a survivor, and that's the scariest part with her. The rain had stopped, but she kept the rod by her door, because she knew some storms never truly pass. A few days later, Lan filed her report. The alley was sealed off. Officially, it was a gas leak. That's what they always said when evil got too close to truth. She sat alone at her desk, hands trembling. She didn't remember everything, not yet, but she remembered the song, the one Mr. Howie used to hum. And sometimes when the sky grew dark, she still heard it in the plumbing, in the gutters, in the rain.